All right. Today I wanted to make a video on something that I suffer from, or that I wouldn't say used to suffer from because I was about to say used to, but I'm working on fixing. And it's anxiety. You know, I feel like a lot of people also suffer with that too. I find it to be a common thing with the people that I meet, unfortunately, that they suffer from some kind of anxiety. From what I've noticed, everyone has a level of anxiety, but it just depends how much your anxiety controls you. You know, it really does depend on that. I have an issue specifically with overthinking, right? I feel like overthinking breeds anxiety, and anxiety breeds doubt, which then that's a whole thing of just self pity, and you just, you talk shitty about yourself. And that's a problem that I tend to have, is I tend to overthink, which then makes me just get super anxious. That's a big reason why my past adventures into YouTube have kind of failed, because I would overthink a video. Like, I'd like, will this be good for some good viewer retention? Will this have good, good views? Will this get me subscribers? And then I end up just never making the video. I'm sure a lot of you can apply that to real life, of not just YouTube, but on anything. You tend to overthink, and then it's like, oh, crap. And now I'm sitting here thinking of every single possibility, and you end up talking yourself out of it. So the bigger question is right, well, how do I fix it? How do I get rid of the bad, anxious thoughts, right? Because that's what you probably clicked on this shit for. You didn't want to click on this shit to hear my sob stories. You wanted to click on this shit to get some knowledge, right? Let me hit you with it. What I've been doing, and it's been very successful for me recently, is whenever I get those anxious thoughts, or those thoughts that, it's like, oh, don't do this because this might happen, or it's like, oh, this could happen, this could happen. I have two methods. The first method I do is I actually acknowledge the thought. I go, you're right, that could happen. And then I just don't think about it any more than that. It's like you acknowledge it, but you don't give it any energy. You don't give it any power. Because it's true. Like, for example, a meteor could come and shoot down and kill you right now. It could happen. No one's saying it can't. But you don't give that thought any power because, well, the likelihood of a meteor coming down and smacking you and obliterating you is very rare. So you don't even give it any attention. And that's kind of what I'm trying to imply with this first method, is acknowledge it. Be like, yeah, a meteor could probably come down and fucking kill me one day. Who knows? But it's so... I remove the power from it. Like a meteor, it's like, well, the probability is really low, so that's how the power of the thought is removed. But with your anxiety, you kind of just remove the power. Be like, yeah, that could happen. But then you just move on. And I know that's a lot easier said than done, but what I do for a good method of moving on is I try to think of something else. I try to think of happy thoughts. I try to think of things that don't anger me. I try to think of the people in my life. I try to think of how far I've come as a person. I could have died way earlier than I am right now. I couldn't made it to the egg. Maybe, who knows? I'd probably be on a fucking sheet somewhere, a little cum stain, but I'm here. And this might not work for you, like the whole, trying to be grateful for what you have, or think of people who care or love about you, because everyone's different. Like, this stuff that I'm telling you isn't going to be like a one-stop shop to just fix everything. This isn't just going to fix your problems magically. It's kind of like the framework, of what I'm trying to tell you. Now, my second method that I like to use is something that I use the most. This is what I use the most, is when I feel a negative thought coming, I just stop what I'm doing. Or if you're let's say you're at work or some shit, you're in the middle of the street or something, you're not just going to stop. But mentally, I stop what I'm thinking about and say, no, that is a negative thought. I will not think about that. And then you think of something else. Attaching a label to it and just putting a negative label to it gives your brain that negative connotation, because the reason why, at least for me, the reason why you think these anxious thoughts is because you think they're going to help you one day, right? And that's why you think all these negative thoughts, and you're trying to just prepare for something that's never going to happen. I feel like that's what anxiety is. You're preparing for something that's probably never going to happen because you're overthinking. It could happen, But that doesn't mean you should prep for it. It's like the meteor example. A meteor could kill you, but the likelihood of that happening is very unlikely. And for whatever scenario that you're overthinking in, the likelihood or anything of that kind of stuff happening just really isn't gonna happen, right? But you're trying to prepare for it. Your brain is doing that as a defense mechanism. So what this method does, it redefines your anxiety thoughts. At first, your anxiety thoughts to your brain are like, oh, this is helping me. This is something that I'm going to need. But now you're going to redefine it. You're going to redefine it as a negative thought. So now when you think about it over time, it's not going to be this thought that it's like, oh, this is helping me. It's going to be, ugh, this thought again. And you're going to apply some kind of disgust, or like I said before, negativity to it. So then after a while, you just stop thinking about it. And it's like, you don't think of nasty shit, right? You don't think of like things that piss you off. You try not to think about those things because, well, I know what it's going to do. So it's the same thing with this the thought process of like labeling it as negative. And eventually you're just going to stray away from it because you don't want to have this negative thought. So just to recap, the first method is acknowledging it, but not giving it any power, right? Remember to just acknowledge the thought, be like, okay, this is an anxious thought. I will acknowledge that this could happen, but I'm going to strip away the power from it. I'm just going to think of something else with like loved ones, or just being grateful for what you have, whatever works for you in that department. The second method is to label it as a negative thought and to just leave it as that. Be like, you're a negative thought. I'm going to stop thinking about this, move on. So eventually to the point where your brain is like, ew, this is a negative thought. Let's not think about this, right? But yeah, that's me rambling about anxiety. Oh, that was a horrible voice crack. Holy shit. That's me rambling about anxiety. If this helped, let me know in the comments. Give me a like, subscribe if you want to hear more. Thanks.